movements that have emerged during the last years within the United States, where I come from, in radical opposition to structural racism. As besieged as those movements might be today, they came forth from the recognition that even though we may be separated by hundreds of years from the periods of colonization, of colonialism and slavery, we are still living the afterlives of colonialism and slavery. We are living the afterlives of colonialism and slavery. We cannot pretend that the putative abolition of slavery magically caused all of the ways in which slavery influenced major institutions in our societies to disappear. The institution may have ceased to exist, but the racism it spawned continues to be very much alive today. And indigenous people militarily bear witness to the fact that the genocide linked to colonialism, particularly in the American hemisphere, continues to define the material and ideological place of the original inhabitants of the hemisphere. It has been assumed that because the U.S. ranked second only to apartheid South Africa in the use of racism to define the society, and not only the southern U.S., but all regions across the country, that it has been assumed that these two countries were the primary localities where racism was a major and defining factor of the life of the countries. And of course, there were vibrant anti-apartheid movements all over the world, including here in Germany and throughout Europe. There were also movements that condemned U.S. racism and expressed solidarity with U.S. Black Americans, as well as with Latinx and Asian and indigenous Americans. From the vantage point of Germany and Europe more broadly, racism was largely defined as external, as something which existed over there, and which could be addressed through expressions of solidarity with Black people and other people of color over there. But it certainly was not considered a problem that existed within Germany or within Europe. And I tell you, when I myself spent 2 years in Germany in the late 1960s, I could have given you many, many examples of the ways racism was expressed from my own personal experience alone, not to speak of the ways in which Gastarbeiter were treated at that time, and it continues to the present. Black people have lived in Germany for many decades and centuries. Nevertheless, like most other countries in Europe, Germany has always considered itself a white country. And I'm telling you that many, many years ago, when my sister visited Germany while she was still a high school student, an adult led her to the washroom and proceeded to ask her to wash herself. And I can assure you that her skin did not look dirty. But of course, this is the history that is always erased. And I want to share with you a very important passage from a book that was written by Harsha Walia. And the title of that book is Border and Rule. Most ironic, she writes, the migration crisis is declared a new crisis with Western countries positioned as its victims. Even though for 4 centuries, nearly 80 million Europeans became settler colonists across the Americas and Oceania, while 4 million indentured laborers from Asia were scattered across the globe, and the transatlantic slave trade kidnapped and enslaved 15 million Africans. Colonialism, genocide, slavery, and indentureship are not only conveniently erased as continuities of violence in current invocations of a migration crisis, but are also the very conditions of possibility for the West's preciously guarded imperial sovereignty. So thinking historically in the present and about the present, and considering that neither the colonial nor the post-colonial are devoid of afterlives, we should realize that we cannot become so attached to the present as we experience it that we fail to understand the dynamic and dialectic production of this present. Still living the afterlives of slavery and settler colonialism. It is argued that Black people, indigenous, Latinx people are the living evidence of the impact of slavery and settler colonialism. But it may be even more important to point out that the real evidence of the damage produced by these systems consists of the structural racism that became so apparent during the COVID-19 pandemic. In the US and throughout the world, people have been urged to think about historical forces responsible for racism and prisons and police and severe repression of immigrants. We are living the afterlives of slavery and colonialism, and easy solutions that only emphasize diversity and inclusion will not work.